voted to approve from the NDC side, they wanted to rebel. I won't also dismiss that there may be elements within the NDC minority in parliament who still feel aggrieved at the decision of the party to make the leadership changes the way they did, and may have thought this was an opportunity to prove a point. What point? To prove a point that the old leadership wasn't as bad after all. And politics is like that, really. Remember, there are people who are still very loyal to Haruna Idrisu and to Muntaka Mubarak, and haven't gotten over the fact that they were removed the way they were removed, right? And this was possibly an opportunity to make that point very loudly to Asiru Nketia and to the party and to whoever was involved in making the decision. Also because that Haruna Idrisu leadership were accused of similar dealings where they failed to stand their ground when it came to the approval of the finance minister, Kojo Nkrumah, and others. I remember the grassroots are very, very upset with that crop of leaders. We saw the party's national communications officer, Sami Jemfi, write a stinker calling out Haruna Idrisu and others. Anybody remember that? That showed a certain grievance in the party. Now, this has repeated itself here. So if you are a Haruna loyalist or a Muntaka loyalist, and you still haven't gotten over this, this possibly could be an opportunity for you to make that point. And that you can discount that in the equation. So that's one. And then there are groups of people in the NDC in Parliament who have personal relationships with all of these individuals. Personal relationships that they count more important than party loyalty, obviously. And that is a problem. But I am trying to understand why this happened. That's another reason. Personal relationships going back to the years. These politicians are friends. People forget that. They are friends first and foremost. They wheel and deal. They bail each other out when they're in trouble. And it makes sense for politicians to take care of themselves. Regardless of which political divide you're on, they take care of themselves. It is a cult. It is a fraternity. It is closely knit. Don't be fooled by the optics when they fight and appear to be disagreeing. They deal. They wheel and deal. And why? Because opposition is hard. It's difficult. A lot of the MPs you see today in opposition are struggling. You think the economy that we're currently facing, that everybody else is struggling, it doesn't affect MPs, especially if you're in opposition. It affects them. They are paid pittance in the grand scheme of things if you're in opposition. MP salary is what, 28,000, I believe. It goes to funeral every weekend. He's spending 5,000 CD on the average every weekend. If you're in opposition, your money is finished in a week. You possibly have a loan that you still have to pay. That man in opposition needs to survive. And if you don't build relationship across both lines, parties, NDC and MPP, they rotate in terms of opposition and government after almost every 8 years. If you build good relationships when you're in opposition, you can rely on the guy who you helped when you're in government to sort of sort you out when you're in opposition. These things happen. And if you build that relationship over time and it comes to this and the person comes to you and says, Charlie, I need you to vote for me, you think the person is going to say no, because really, when the power changes hands, he will have to rely on this other person. So that is another reason why. And of course, there have been suggestions that people also were blatantly, obviously, giving inducements. There's no evidence to show that. But again, in politics, you can't discount that. So these could be many reasons why the decision was made by the NDC MPs to vote for the appointees. But the main important point is that decision stands in opposition to the party's explicit wishes, and I believe the explicit wishes of the majority of Ghanaians who believed that the NDC was pursuing a noble cause when they insisted that the government should reduce the size of government first before they consider the appointment. And I have spoken to even some of the appointees, at least one of them, who agreed in principle with the NDC decision. He told me he agrees that the president must at least reduce the size of government, because if he's confirmed, he becomes a victim of the president's intransigence, because he will be criticized for going into an elephant-sized government at the time of economic crisis. And so he will be collateral damage. And so he actually agreed with the NDC, right? So for those who voted for him, they clearly were standing against public opinion and against the explicit wishes of the people. The national interest didn't matter. Personal, private, parochial interest took precedence. And that's where the only problem is here.
Well, Winston, you have said that the NDC